Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round two of ZAD's F1 Circuit Tour, brought to you by Zealous Racing League. My name is Shim. I'll be your host tonight for the race. Like usual, tonight we have a race at Barcelona. It's going to be a 45-minute race with one mandatory pit stop for our drivers. That is during a 25-minute pit window in the middle of the race. So should be an interesting race when it comes to strategy, and that pit stop definitely will be coming into play today because this track is notorious for its tire wear. A lot of high degradation, especially on the left side of the tires, with a lot of sweeping right-handers that put a lot of pressure on those left-hand tires. A lot of load is put into those left side tires, which really causes them to heat up. I think some of our drivers were seeing normal running temperatures at about 100 degrees for those tires on the left. So going to actually mean something to have pit stop strategy today. The pit stop, the undercut, the overcut will be in effect, will have an effect on the race today. Now, what you're watching right now is our driver's free practice before the race. I do have a few announcements before qualifying begins, but first, just encourage you, if you're new to Zealous, please give us a like and a follow on our Facebook and Twitter page. And if you're interested in joining the community and have not already, be sure to like and follow, join our Discord server as well. Discord server is where you're going to be finding all the most up-to-date information on the Racing League. So if you're interested in joining us in the future, be sure to go onto that Discord, give a shout out to one of our admins. They'll be happy to help. Some other news that we have tonight, new drivers are joining us tonight. Drivers like, let me go to him, Calvin Wolf has joined the season. One of our Zealous Racing League admins. He is currently racing in the Aston Martin V8 this season. Another driver that wasn't able to join us last week was Todd Cromier. I want to make sure I get that right. I've been made fun of by some of my Canadian friends for not being able to pronounce their last name, so hopefully I said it right there. But Todd was on a work trip last week, and he's able to make it with us today. In other news, a landslide performance from Christopher Larson, our current championship leader, with a commanding win last week at Imola. Christopher in the Honda, and some other drivers in the Honda, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, are Goetia, who had a bit of a rough race last week, having had contact on the first lap, dropping down to the end of the field, the back of the pack, ended up finishing just out of the top 10. Another driver that got contact was KP Portis, our last season's championship winner. He was dropped all the way down into last place on the first lap as well, but he was able to make it back to P4 and ended the race just outside of the podium. A newcomer to the Zealous Racing League community, Peter Englander, ended up getting his first podium on his first race last week, so congrats to him. Hopefully he can follow up with another great performance this week. Looks to be doing well in free practice. Currently running P5, about a second, little under a second and a half behind Larson, who's running the fastest laps in our practice session today. We also have in the standings this season a Manufacturers Cup that the way the points are calculated for that are the top 2 cars of any manufacturer. The scores of those 2 cars, the scores that those drivers get, they'll be added up, and those will be the manufacturing championship points for that manufacturer. Currently, Honda is in the lead of the manufacturer championship with a P1 and a P4 performance from Larson and Portis, respectively. Then we have Mercedes and Audi, who are coming in second place, tied for P2 in the manufacturer standings with 52 points right now. I believe the current winners, the current champions, or current P1 in the championship standings for manufacturers, the Hondas have, I believe, 96 points in the standings right now, with Mercedes and Audi quite a bit of a ways behind, but right now they're tied at 52 points. That definitely has to do with Englander's great performance P3 last week, as well as some great performances from some of our Audis in the top 10. If you weren't here last week and you want to know who got each of the positions, so like I had mentioned before, Larson, our P1 driver, currently slated to be P1 in this race as well. Valero got P2. Valero was able to make some moves after the Lab 1 incidences between Portis and Guacia, was able to maintain the lead from Englander and got P2 last week. Englander was able to, it looks like Englander maybe crashed, but Englander got P3 last week. P4, as I had mentioned, was Portis with a great back to from the back of the pack up to get P4. And to round out our top 5, Matthew Reed was able to get the last top 5 spot after starting in P10. So a great moves from him to get up there in the top 5. Rocking a new livery this week, the Northern France Racing got some poutine livery, a Northern Francos Racing livery. But this should be a fun race for our drivers tonight. One thing to note is that a lot of our drivers have mentioned that this is not one of their favorite tracks on the calendar, which could lead to some interesting outcomes from our drivers. And what I mean by that is, since they find a lot of issues with this track, maybe a few more incidences may occur during the race, but that will remain to be seen. Another thing, T1 is going to be an absolute crapshoot during this race as well. T1 of Barcelona is notorious for having 3-4 wide going into T1 because there's such a long run up to the straight. Audis are definitely going to have a bit of a performance advantage when it comes to the start of this race. But once they get down to T1, a lot of our drivers will find themselves 3, 4, sometimes even 5 wide, although that is not recommended. So we could be seeing some lap 1 incidences at turn 1. Another thing to note, the turn that Boudry just went over, that little chicane, the right to left, going to see a lot of track limits, as well as that very sweeping right-hander. Going to see a lot of track limit warnings. I could see our drivers getting penalties for track limits. Aldred, good point there. A lot of track limits could be seen. A lot of awkward turns. Very heavy loaded right-handers, as well as turns that'll force you to go a little bit wider than you might like. Also out of the chicane here, the new chicane. Really want to get on the power as fast as possible, and as you can see, you try to use as much of the curbing as possible. Got to watch out a little bit for that sausage curb, but definitely trying to utilize as much of the track limits as possible, especially in these chicanes coming down T1 here. You've got that right-hander into the left-hander chicane here. our drivers are going to be trying to cut that left-hander as Baudry gets a little bit wide there. So definitely could be seeing some track limits, could be seeing some incidences at turn 1. Also, high tire deg is just going to be playing a factor. Our tires are going to be running hot. Our drivers could be trying to itch out every little bit of grip that they possibly could from their cars. So definitely going to be a fun race to watch. You know, as much as our drivers don't like this track, I think this track does lead to some great racing. So we follow Brown here. We're supposed to get a new driver to Zealous Racing League today, but so far has not shown up so far as Brown cancels his lap out right there. We'll follow Rodman as he finishes up. Looks like the 59 ahead of him. Englander is just going to quit out the lap as we end our free practice. And to all of you watching, I do hope that you're sharing this with all your friends and family. Get as many people as you can to watch the race. It really does help us. Gets us some more traction. We'd really like to try to expand Zealous as much as possible. So any more outreach that we can do is helpful, as Rodman just goes straight into the barriers to end the session. Now, as we go into qualifying, something I usually like to do is follow the lead car out in qualifying, and as it's a bit dark out, I think what we're going to do is use a bonnet cam just to help us see a little bit more of the circuit as we watch Valero, who's first out of the gate. Gonna watch him as he comes around his outlap of Barcelona. Also in the Honda NSX, or if you're in the US, and the livery that he's using should show as an Acura NSX, but game still will call it a Honda. But what I like to do is follow our first driver out in qualifying during their first hot lap, and that is Valero. And as you can see, the race tonight is going to be a bit later in the day. It's going to be showing up as a night race, I believe. Lights are going to be on for our drivers. Was an executive decision so that it wouldn't be too hot on the circuit, so our tires won't get crazy hot. Still going to see a lot of deg on that left side though. It's going to make, especially later into stints, these right-handers a lot more squirrely for our drivers. These right-handers, I tell you, are killer. Even on fresh tires. So when you have worn tires, it just makes it that much worse. I remember we did a race here where we had no mandatory pit stops for 45 minutes. Those tires were going crazy as Valero blinks his lights. Here he is on his first hot lap, braking at about the 100, trying to cut over, get on the power, trying not to use as much of the curb as possible there for him, trying to stay light on the throttle. You can use as much of the track as possible, going as far wide as you can on the curbing, braking into another right-hander after right-hander here. Using as much of the track as possible. Hard to judge this braking zone, just got to look for the rubbering on the side of the track there. Braking now down the hill just as the curbing starts, trying to cut as much of this turn and the next turn as possible as he takes that little chicane just off the gas a little bit. Not too much braking, maybe to rotate your car. Keep it in the gears and power on. Braking at a tree just before the 50, or I should say the 100, sorry. Going as far to the right of the track as possible. Cutting that little kink. Another wide right, scrubbing those left tires. As we move towards the chicane, definitely the entry is important here, trying to get as close to those sausage curbs as possible. And then on the gas right as you turn, using all the curbing you can here down the start-finish straight. Valero will start with a 45. Not great, but it'll be a good beginning lap. Portis does go a little bit better at 44.4. I think Portis has really got his work cut out for him this season, as he's got Larson to race against. Larson has proven to be quite elusive for all of our drivers. Portis really was the favorite going into this season just because of his performances last season, being very dominant in that Honda. This year, though, this season, he really does have to compete with the likes of Christopher Larson. Larson seems to have maybe had a bit of a rough outlap there, or starting lap. A 1:51 must have cut the circuit. Will not be good enough to last. But Larson is really going to give our drivers a run for their money this season. Absolutely rapid last week at Imola. Was, I believe, a whole lap ahead of P2. So he had lapped P2, so he was a whole lap ahead of everyone else in the race last week. Granted, we did have a couple pit stops, so that did throw some things in the air, and we had some incidences as well with our top drivers. But that being said, absolutely dominant performance from him last week. As we watch Larson getting caught up in a little bit of traffic there behind Yao. Toby Yao racing in the BMW this season. As Larson kind of comes out of this stadium section here into the chicane. Look at how wide of an entry he takes, trying to really cut the middle of it, and Larson not going to work for him. He's going to go in, maybe get some new tires. Maybe his pressures were wrong, but that will put him at a bit of a disadvantage going into our qualifying session. Right now, Portis is setting our fastest lap with a 43.8. Valero 0.3 seconds behind him. Excuse me. Followed by Guacia, Fletcher in the McLaren, running a Castrol livery. It's a pretty clean looking livery, I must say. England are currently in the pits, P5. Nunez goes one better. Now he is up into P4. Nunez definitely one of our faster racers on the grid tonight. Did get into some issues last week with some contact on lap 1. Not to fear, though. He is back at it this week, unfazed, hopefully, by the misfortune of last. Reed in the pits. Baudry out P8 running currently. Matt Fender seems to have worked out some of the bugs in that AMG. Didn't have a great race last week, but seems to be doing much better in qualifying so far. Similarly, Wolf doing great in the Aston Martin, rounding out our top 10 currently in qualifying. Provisional P10. 4 drivers have yet to set a lap. Rodman, Larson, Pitch, and Friesen. Larson is now currently out on the track. Pitch seems to be a little bit lackadaisical with his movements here, although he maybe just took a little wider line. Friesen has yet to make a lap as well. Waited a little longer before going out, I think. Another mention, shout out to Glenn. Last week definitely had computer issues was the consensus. Was in and out of the session all last night, or all last week. Finally has fixed those computer issues. Back on the grid he is in that Mercedes. Looking at our drivers. Another good battle here could be brewing between the two Floreses we have, Carlos and Christopher. Had some racing last week, so wonder if we will see some of that this week as well. So we watch Larson coming around that little kink in the track, as Friesen now sets a lap. Friesen P10 taking that from Wolf. Friesen also getting caught up into some lap 1 incidences last week. Came back from the back of the pack to score just out of the top 10. Would have wished for something a little bit better than that. Excuse me. But sometimes that happens. Mentioned to me that he did get pretty frustrated after that incident, and wasn't really able to shake that all race. Hopefully none of that happens this week. As we follow Larson now, as he hopefully sets his first fast lap. Larson, P1. Taking provisional pole, Larson with a 43.475. Portis now on his out lap. Portis coming out, now going for a fast lap here. Portis only 2.5 tenths or so behind. We'll have to watch that as it develops with 4 minutes 30 seconds left. Portis' P4 performance last week definitely going to hurt him in the standings when it comes to him fighting with Larson this season. Hopefully he can make that back. His pitch now rounds that final corner as he comes down the start-finish straight. Going to go P22 in the Bentley. So we follow some of our drivers. Valero is now currently on an out lap. Or maybe this is his first fast lap after going into the pits. Isn't able to improve. 6 tenths slower than his fastest lap, 44.7. Best is 44.1. Goetia, now he's going to be rounding, rocking that Red Bull livery. Isn't able to do one better. Only 2 tenths back, though, from his best lap. A few issues from the 118 car of Yao as he goes into the pits. As we go back, Portis now rounding the chicanes. 3 minutes left in qualifying. Has time maybe left for 2 laps. Really using all of the curbing that he can. 43.7. So let me do the math. Hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, only 5/10,000ths of a second behind, slower than his fastest lap. Now Larson is going to be coming in behind him. Larson definitely has a provoking livery on that Honda. On the bumper, if you can see it, come and take it, it says. Larson isn't able to improve. Slow lap there. 2 minutes, 20 seconds left. Can do 2 fast laps if the cards play out right. Englander in the pits. Bowdry now on an out lap. A lot of our drivers are opting to just take the times they have been given so far. I think the most brutal part of this track is definitely this first sector. Really puts a lot of heavy strain on those left tires here with some pretty fast right-handers, especially, T1 is a right-hander, but you're going a lot slower. Then you get into T3 there, that really rounded right-hander, definitely puts a lot of strain on those left-hand tires. And then right after that, down a little straight, you've got, as you enter into sector 2, you've got another heavy loaded right-hander. You get a little bit of a break after that, but a lot of times you're running your tires so hot that it doesn't really have enough time to slow down even after that. As you come into that fast, almost 90-degree right-hander going onto that back straight. And of course, the final turn, another right-hander that you're accelerating all the way out on, you're flat out of that last turn. Portis does improve his best lap. He is 2/10 now, less than 2/10 behind Larson. Larson isn't able to improve his last few laps. A lot of load even on that turn too. That's that little almost 90-degree curved right-hander. I find the toughest parts of this track now qualifying has ended. I find the toughest parts of this track to be the fact that there are so many unique turns. I feel like every turn of this track you have to operate just a little bit differently. From the chicanes to every right-hander being a bit different turning radius, a bit different gearing as Portis uses as much as he possibly can, and he's not able to go faster. So that means Larson is our pole sitter for the race. 45 minutes. Larson will be our pole sitter for this race with a 43.5, with Portis right behind. 43.8. Unless Valero, I should say, does any better, but he is in the pits currently. Goetia, Nunez, Reed, Fletcher. 59 of Englander. He is the last car in the top 10 of qualifying to be out. As Englander now goes into the chicane. Fastest lap currently for Englander is a 44.9. See if he can do one better here, put himself a little bit further into those top 10 positions. He's stuck with it so far, and he does pull out just ahead of Fletcher for P7 there. Great performance from Englander. And here we are, the race start as I hit drive. Here we are, 2 minutes for our drivers to get their cars ready before the start of this race. Current running order is Larson, Portis, Valero, Goetia, Nunez, Reed, Englander, Fletcher, Fender, Turnbull, Boudry, Friesen, Pitch, Carlos Flores, Keith Brown, Cleric, Wolf, Griffith, Christopher Flores, Rise, Pinio, Yao, Collis, Polgarin, Belanger, Cromer, and Rodman. That is your starting order for the race today. Watch out for those turn 1 incidences as we give our drivers a minute to get their cars ready. We've got 45 minutes of Barcelona ahead. Stay tuned, the race will start shortly. 30 seconds for our drivers. And we are about to begin. Our drivers putting their cars into drive here. Portis and Larson line up on the front row. As they come down, got a short run up for our racers here. Got to go through the chicane though. As they come down for our start finish here. I'm going to write down the rest of our drivers here as they start. They're coming down the start finish now as everyone lines up. And we are green. 45 minutes. Portis tucks right in behind Larson down the front straight. 4 Hondas in the front here. As you can see, though, those Audis definitely have a performance boost here on the straights as we go 3 wide at some places down into P1. Keeping it clean so far. Valero and Portis getting awfully close behind. Larson pulling out ahead. Guacia, a lot of our drivers here in the back, though, getting clogged up. Baudry losing a few places, it looks like. Or actually, he's been able to hold. Larson pulling ahead, keeping it clean. Looks like we're all clean through T1. I can't even believe it. One driver's down, though. Didn't see who that was. I think it may have been Pitch. It is not Pitch, though. We do have one of our drivers dropping back, though. Belanger in the back. Who did drop back there? Collis, Cromer. There is a BMW off the track there. Wasn't able to see who that was, though. See if Friesen definitely got into some issues there, though, it looks like. A lot of damage on the back of that bumper. Looks like somebody ran into the back of him. Was it Flores, perchance? And as you look at Flores' car, it definitely looks like Flores ran into Friesen there. Might be some penalties at the end of the race. Larson pulling out 1 second ahead of Portis already. Portis, Valero, Guacia. Looking at some of the driving behind, Pitch has moved his way up quite a bit. Nunez lost some positions, it looks like, at the start, though. Definitely not in P5 currently. Englander looks to be our driver in P4. As we look back, where is Guacia? Guacia fell back all the way to the back. Definitely some issues there as our timing starts to get itself worked through here. Englander P4, the king of staying out of trouble here. Englander was able to gain some positions at the start last race, and he's able to do so this week as well. As we look behind, Fletcher and Reed battling it out a little bit. Turnbull P8 out of the gate. Fender P7. Nunez drops back to P9, already trying to make his way back, with Pitch moving up from P13 into P10. Cleric definitely dropping back from the rest of the pack. Contact between Rise and Cleric bumps. Pinio gets caught up in that as well. Brown promoted from that. Driver behind that. Rise just got squeezed a little bit, looks like, from Cleric there. Moves some other drivers up. Yao moves from back in P15. Looks he's moved up into P13 there. Rise back in the pits already to fix his car up. Definitely a little bit of frustration, I can tell. Brown promoted to P11 from that little incident there. Friesen dropping back even further, it looks like. Actually, Friesen's been able to make his way back up into P21. So keeping his head down, getting a little squirrely there on that right-hander. Didn't have a lot of room. Griffith wasn't really giving it. Yao moved up from that little bit of an incident between Cleric and Rise, moves up to P12. Definitely some incidences to check into when we get to the end of this race. Reed feeling the pressure now from Fletcher. Battle for P5 currently. For as wide as this track is, it's pretty difficult to overtake in most parts of the track. With so many fast corners, doesn't lead to having multiple lines very well. Carlos Flores dropped back now to P24 after starting P14. See where our other drivers are. Bulgarian is demoted from P24. Looking at Friesen here, P22. Looks like Griffith was able to just squeeze out ahead of him. Remember, they have a 25-minute pit window here, so that's going to be... A lot of our drivers are going to be watching that, going to want to fix their cars as soon as they can. Bulgarian, let's see, does he have any damage? A lot of damage on that Mercedes of Bulgarian. Nunez making his way back into P9 after some lap 1 incidents. Goes wide, though, as they enter into the chicane. Guacia all the way back into P18. Another poor start for him. He's going to be a bit frustrated from that. Another driver that's moved up from a lot of these incidences has been Todd here. P20, started the race 26. Same with Belanger, moved into P6, not P19 after starting P25. Good moves from him. Bulgarian with a stop-go 10-second penalty. Looks like that was the was that Yao, the 99 car. 99 car of Pinio, a bit wide into T1 there. Portis is now 3 seconds back from the leader, but he is holding his own. He's been able to gain a gap of 3 seconds on Valero behind him. Looking at our timing tables, close battles between Nunez and Pitch, I should say here. Turnbull. Looks like Fender, Turnbull, and Nunez here battling it out for P7. As they come around. Final sector here, the stadium section of the track. Entering into the dreaded chicane. Keeping it close. Looking now, some of our big gainers so far have been Englander. Now P4 started P7. Looking at Fletcher, started P8. Not too big of a move, but very respectable. Pitch has been able to make his way up from P13 to P10. Turnbull's been able to make it up into P8 from P10. Looking at some of the cars here, seeing if there's any moves. Looks like Larson's already about to lap his first car. Bulgarian there in the Mercedes. Englander 1.5 seconds ahead of Fletcher and Reed here, battling it out for P5. Fletcher definitely hanging with Reed. Could be a over or undercut battle between these two. Reed definitely a better out of the turn there. Seeing a lot of shakeups so far in the order. As I mentioned, a lot of incidences already in the race. Demoting quite a few drivers. I know Cleric started P16, but he's had some incidences, was running 10 earlier, and he finds himself losing out. Friesen's losing places left and right as well. I think the top speed of that Ferrari is definitely hurting right now. Flores, a lot of damage on that car, keeping him from moving forward. Rodman staying out of trouble. He was last place in qualifying. Just trying to race and be clean here. A lot of these drivers here in the final top 20 positions just good at staying out of trouble. It's really too bad for drivers like Rise and Cleric who have had issues. Same with Flores, Friesen, Pinio even getting into a lot of trouble there in T1. And he got into trouble there with an incident. So we have a train of drivers here. Train of drivers behind Fender. Fender, Turnbull, Nunez, Pitch. Pitch a little bit further back, but he definitely is trying to stick with the group here. This is definitely a better performance for Fender as well. Last week, I believe he was down. Let's see where my notes are. Last week, Fender, the number 6 car. Let's see if I can tell where he was P16. So from him to go from P16 now to P7 the next race, definitely a lot of improvement. Pit window is open for our drivers. 35 minutes left in the race. Pit window's open. They are able to pit and take on tires and have it count for their mandatory pit stop. I know a lot of our drivers probably are going to be taking advantage of that pretty soon. I think it's in Friesen's best interest, as well as Pinio and Flores, to repair that damage, get back out on the track. Going back to our leader, our leaders have pulled 5-second gaps from each other here. Larson now 4.8 seconds from the last timing section. Up on Portis, just absolutely rapid in that Honda. Portis is 5 seconds ahead of Valero behind him. Now Valero, on the other hand, he is definitely going to be feeling the pressure from Englander behind. There was a race brewing between these two last week at Imola. Valero was able to edge out a victory over Englander from the pit stop, from the second pit stop. Englander was ahead on track going into that second pit stop, and for some reason Englander had a bit slower of that second pit stop, and it caused him to lose out to Valero. Looking at that battle now, a good battle between Reed and Fletcher for P5. Reed is able to hold so far. Problem, like I said, is not a lot of great overtaking spots. Probably the best overtaking spot, and Fletcher's in the pits, is T1, I would say, but it does take a lot of bravery to outbrake your opponent there. But you have to outbrake in T1, make sure you cut off the line on T2, and then you have to hold it in T3. So that's a multi-turn setup to make the move. Friesen coming out of the pits now, having repaired the damage on that Ferrari. That's going to be a good move for him. I think that'll help him gain some positions back. He's just got to put his head down and drive now as Brown comes in behind him. Brown, having started this race in P15, finds himself P11 now. Belanger is on the outside of the track letting people pass. Fender and Turnbull now still battling it out. Haven't opted to pit yet. I can guess one of these guys probably will though soon. As we look, if we look at our rankings so far as well, Audis are going to be hurting a bit during this race when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. We've got Englander and Fender up there in the top 10, running in the Mercedes cars. Turnbull overtaking here is definitely would definitely be good for our Audi team. As we see now, Yao with a stop-go penalty. Must have been speeding in the pits. So Yao now with a 30-second stop-go penalty. Bulgarian has done his penalty. Friesen now currently on his outlap. P24 after the pit stops. Should put him ahead now of Pinio and Yao after he's got to do his stop-go. Nunez already making his pit stop. He's just gotta put in some good laps now and make them count. Pitch is in the pits. Turnbull looking to make that move. Another possible opportunity is here. But you have to watch out. You have to make sure that your presence is known from the driver you're overtaking from, because as you saw from Leclerc and Rise's contact, if you're not careful, you can squeeze the inside car, and that can cause an incident. "30 minutes left in the race, 20 left in the pit window. Larson 6 seconds ahead now of Portis, who is 8 seconds ahead of Valero. I think Valero is definitely feeling the pressure from Englander. Tires are going on that car. Problem is, do you risk going longer now at the cost of some lap time, or do you pit early so that you have an advantage in the mid-race? I think it's a lot easier to overtake earlier than it is to overtake later on track. It does provide great racing if you can make a move. But I think my philosophy has always been to pit a little bit earlier. Give yourself some clean air. Put your head down and race, because I think right now Englander looks to be faster than Valero. If I look at the lap times too, Englander has been sticking with Valero, and their best laps are very close to each other. Englander's slightly faster, but I would be willing to bet that Valero is holding up Englander right now from his full potential, so it might be within his best interest to make a pit stop early. Friesen, now if we watch him, he's made it up into P21 after the pit stop. Got quite a ways to go to catch up to Pitch here in P20. But that's the race he's got to fight now. He finds himself quite a few seconds behind the driver in front of him. Goetia P17 now after having those issues. He has made his pit stop, so he's got a little bit of clean air now behind the leader. And that should allow him to set some fast laps here. Best lap has been a 45. Same as Englander. Englander has made the move. Wish I would have watched that, but Englander has made the move on Valero. Probably coming into T1 there is where he made that move. And now that he's got the position, it might be within his best interest to also take that pit stop. We'll see how well he does, though, now that he doesn't have Valero to watch out for behind him, or in front of him. See if he's able to set some faster laps now. Flores, Christopher Flores, Carlos Flores, and Wolf are in the pits currently. One of our admins, Collis here, in the Ferrari this season. The red Zealous Ferrari. Definitely has some damage on that front bumper, but probably not too much. Taking a look here, Reed. Fastest lap has been a 45.2. Last lap was a 45.9. If we look at Fletcher, if we find Fletcher here, where could he be? P17. Fletcher's best lap is a 45. Fletcher's best lap is a 45, almost flat, which means he's setting almost as fast a laps as Englander, Valero, and Aguaisha out on the track. It means Reed might be in trouble a little bit here when it comes to track position. Fletcher is setting faster laps here, so when Reed makes his pit stop, going to be at a bit of a disadvantage now. 15 seconds left in our pit window. Fender behind him, still feeling pressure from Turnbull here. This battle has been raging for almost the whole race. Brown in the pits. Nunez finds himself only 3 seconds behind Fletcher as well, which means that Nunez is going to be coming up quite a bit further up in the standings after these pit stops. Nunez, remember, had some lap 1 incidences that put him back further in the pack and just outside of the top 10. Should be moving his way maybe into P6, P7 territory, I would say now. As Belanger lets Fender and Turnbull pass. That is not his fight. Friesen P20 now, passing Flores. Todd in the pits. Cromier. Rodman in the pits as well. Looking at our leaders, nobody has opted to pit just yet. Larson's probably trying to get as much out of these first stint of tires as possible. Still running in the 44s with those worn tires. Portis is only running laps about 2/10 slower than 2/10 slower than Larson, but isn't setting any fastest laps with those times. Turnbow getting awfully close into T1 there with, looks like, who is behind him there? Looks like Rodman behind him there after coming out of the pits. As I mentioned, this track, I would say, is the right way to describe it is divisive. A lot of people really seem to not like Barcelona. And I think I get where they're coming from, but I think Barcelona, this track definitely gets some undue hate, some unjust hate. I think it's better than what a lot of people make it out to be. It's maybe not as iconic as a lot of older tracks like Spa, Silverstone, but I think it does provide for some really fun racing. And the fact that it, especially when you have some pit stops, the fact that it is so heavy on your tires, when you incorporate pit stops into that formula, definitely allows for some very interesting strategies to come into play. And I think you're going to see that in this race today with drivers, like Reed. As I just saw there, Fletcher taking an earlier pit stop to get out of Reed's way has put now Fletcher ahead of Reed coming out of the pits. So right there, we saw it in action now. Fletcher is ahead in P9 to Reed's P10 after taking their pit stops. Now, there's still some drivers ahead of them that have not taken their pit stops yet, but it just goes to show how powerful the overcut or undercut is on this track. It just shows how worn these tires get as Turnbull goes very wide on T3 there. Very wide. Definitely going to give Fender a little bit of breathing room there. Reed is out on the pits now. Nunez behind him. Yeah, Fletcher played that perfectly when it came to the undercut. The undercut, I should say, sorry. Englander has now made his pit stop. Going to be feeling the pressure from Fletcher now behind. Fletcher is running laps that are about a tenth to 3/10 of a second faster than Englander during this race. As we have 20 minutes left in this race, and we come to about 10 minutes left in our pit window. Portis in the pits, Cleric in the pits. We come to the pouring of the race where we'll go through all of the drivers and how they're doing so far. So Larson currently in the lead, commanding that lead over Portis in P2. P3 is Valero. Quite a ways behind Portis there. Then Fender. Fender has yet to make his pit stop yet though, so could be a little bit further back. Could be Englander that takes that P4 position, P3 position from excuse me, from Fender and Valero. We'll have to see now as Englander comes out of the pits, or Englander comes down the start-finish straight where Portis is, and as you can see, Portis is already coming out of the pits now. Turnbull is in the pits, getting out of Fender's way. Turnbull has been running faster laps, it looks like, than Fender. So interesting to see how that plays out. Then we have Fletcher behind Englander, having made the move on the pit stop from Reed, P8. Nunez, P9. Maybe looking to make a move as well. Only about a half a tenth behind. We'll have to watch this maybe now. Watching Nunez looking to make a move. Nunez really making good use out of the whole track limit there. As he comes in behind Reed. Turnbull makes his way out of the pits now. Behind Reed and Nunez. Pitch is P10. Got the leader ahead of him. Gawesha, P11. Bowdry, P12. Keith Brown, having made his way from P15, now P13. Christopher Flores found himself starting the race. P19 is now P14. Good work from him. Wolf, he's in P15. Rodman, having started from the back, is now P16. Cromier, now feeling the pressure from Friesen behind. Cromier, sorry. Feeling the pressure from Friesen behind. P17 and Friesen 18. We'll see if Friesen can make a move here. Looking back at our timing, Fender's in the pits now. Larson's in the pits. Looking at the best laps, Portis probably just getting those tires worked in here. Portis is just coming to the hairpin into the stadium section here. As now Larson is coming out of the pits. We're going to watch this battle here, Friesen and Cromier. See if Friesen can make the move down the start-finish straight here. Friesen tucking into the slipstream. Doesn't get a great run out of the chicane. down the start-finish straight. He is closer. He is going to go on the inside. And Todd is going to go wide and cut Friesen off. Didn't seem to be phased by Friesen's attempt at a possible overtake there. Just takes the line that he's used to, and it ends up paying off for him. Cleric is P19. Carlos Flores, P20. Moving back from 14 for him. Collis is P21. Pinio, P22. Hoping to battle with Collis here for a position. Griffith, P23. Yao, 24. Polgarin is in 25. Belanger, 26. And Rise, just staying in the pits. Valero now with a stop-go penalty of 30 seconds. That is a devastating penalty for... That's a devastating penalty for Valero. That must have been on his pit stop there. Englander now is going to be P3. It could be another podium position. Podium performance for Englander. Great work, Valero. Now P11, P12 dropping down the leaderboard. 13, 14. Absolutely devastating for him. 15. Oh, Valero had it in the bag. A podium position possibly, or at least in the top 5, and that is no longer in the books for him. As Valero now finds himself coming down the order. He has another stop-go penalty. It looks like 2. See where Portis is in comparison to Larson, 6 seconds back. Portis just isn't able to get ahead of Larson. Englander 15 seconds back from him. Right now, battle raging between Guacia, Pitch, Baudry. Should just say Guacia and Pitch. Get some of our other moves here. It's Valero. Valero's opting to just stay out at this point. Take whatever penalty the race will give him. Already a lot of damage has been done. As he finds himself behind Cleric now, P19 for Valero. Gosh, that's very devastating for his race, and now he's going to go serve that penalty. Promotes Friesen and Cromier into 16-17 here. Friesen just not really able to make a move on Cromier. Just cutting off every opportunity here, but Friesen seems to have a little better line. Good battles between these two. Nunez now within a second of Reed. 12 minutes left in the race. Every car has made their pit stop, except for Rise, who's just opting to stay in the pits. Nunez, good run down the start-finish straight here. Is it going to be enough, though, to give him a passing opportunity? Doesn't look like it will be. And they come. Oh, Nunez definitely breaks a lot later than Reed there. Reed getting squirrely. Nunez on the outside. Don't know if that was contact between the two drivers. Reed's tires definitely feeling it. Definitely think those tires are hot. Going into the cockpit. Don't see the pressures. Dang it. I was hoping we might. Nunez on the outside. Goes very wide. But Nunez is holding his line. Reed has got the inside. I think it's going to give him a bit of an opportunity. Very close between Nunez and Reed. Nunez takes a bit of a cut there. Gets the inside line now. Taking all of the curbing he can. Reed just has to give up that position at that point. Nunez had the inside line. It's a good move on track, though, by Reed. By Nunez, I should say, sorry. Putting his way back into P5. That is a top 5 performance coming back from some lap 1 incidences. Looking at some other battles we have here, possibly Fender and Turnbull. Friesen's able to make that move on Cromier. Now Friesen working to try and catch Rodman. This is a great performance from Rodman, having started from the back of the pack during this race. And is now currently sitting P15. Looking at some other movers here. See how close Friesen is. Behind him, he's still got Cromier. He's feeling that pressure as the sunset sets here at Barcelona. Less than 10 minutes left in the race. Less than 10 minutes in the race. Friesen able to pull away from Todd out of the hairpin there, or sorry, out of the chicane. Englander got a solid hold now on P3. Fletcher, see if he's going to be feeling any pressure from Nunez. Nunez is a 6 seconds behind. Going back to Friesen, or back to Fender and Turnbull. Turnbull getting awfully close here, coming into the stadium section. Into the chicane they go. Turnbull trying to stay close, but also not compromise his line there. Great run for Turnbull. Coming down the start-finish straight, puts him awfully close to Fender going down the straight. He's very close. Is he going to make a move? Looks inside, thinks better of it, and tucks in behind Fender. Trying to make Fender just make a mistake here at this point, I think is the move. And with now just under 8 minutes to go, let me know what you guys think in chat. Who is the driver of the day? And if you're liking what you're seeing, consider following us and joining our Discord. It's where you'll get all of the most up-to-date information on our leagues and everything that we do. And it is not too late to join the league. If you are interested, please just talk to our admins. I believe there's still slots, so you're able to join if you are interested. Fender pulling away from Turnbull this last lap here. I think Fender maybe suffers a little bit in this stadium section, though. Although that may be eating my words there. Looks to be doing all right by my accounts. Not too many battles going on right now. This is the closest one we've got. Turnbull trying to get a good run out of the chicane. It's crucial for the start-finish straight. It's, I think a lot of the reason a lot of people don't like this track is how technical it can be. You know, a lot of degradation on those left tires. Each right-hander has a bit different methodology to take. whether it be braking and taking it kind of slow, like a hairpin almost, or going into it fast and trying to maintain your momentum. Not only that, there's some tricky parts of the track where you have to really abuse track limits. One being the exit of the last turn. Right here, the uphill section, really trying to cut as much of that curbing as you possibly can. Really just gives you the best line out of the turn down the back straight. Just a lot of difficult turns for our drivers to negotiate as they go around this track. And then to end it off, you have a ridiculous chicane that I don't think anyone I've heard actually likes the chicane. They only tolerate it. So just a lot of trickiness for our drivers to manage. Doesn't make it easy. Managing not only pit stops, but track limits, managing tire temperatures, managing, every turn in between, trying to get it just right. Turnbull getting close down the straight. That's that Audi power, but isn't able to make anything of it. Gets awfully close now to Fender. Opting for a wider line there. Don't know if that's paying off for him, but it definitely is putting him closer during this lap. Fender and Turnbull weren't really racing too much against each other last week. Turnbull qualified P9. He finds himself in a very similar situation this week. Goetia has moved his way back up into the top 10 after the lap 1 incidences. 3 minutes left. Could be about 3 or 4 laps left in this race. Larson commanding the lead. Definitely putting the money where his mouth is when it comes to that phrase on the back of the car. A lot of boldness to say come and take it, and so far nobody has been able to come and take it. I know I expected Larson to be fast, but I don't think I expected him to be as fast as he's been so far this season. That NSX has been prime for him in the 2 races that we've had, and at this point I don't know what other people can do to really combat that. I think their best bet is for Larson to possibly make a mistake, which I find highly unlikely, or for him to possibly get in an incident, which we don't want to see that happen, but honestly, that's the only way I see him. That's the only way I see him getting taken down from this throne he's on. The last lap he ran was a 43.5, fastest lap of the race, and we're 43 laps in, and those are, at this point, those tires that he's on, they're kind of used at this point. And he's making moves around people as well, mind you. I mean, the last lap definitely was a second slower, but don't think you have to worry too much. Larson not opting to make any moves. I think he doesn't want to get involved with any other drivers right now at the risk of getting into a wreck. He's got a couple drivers ahead of him that he knows, I think, have had some incidences earlier in the race. Looking back at the Turnbull and Fender battle here, Collis is behind him, a lapped car. See if Turnbull can maybe make the move here down the straight. Turnbull wide though, definitely not going to be able to do it this lap. Watching Friesen's charge from the back, 1 minute left in the race. Seeing if he can get P15 from Rodman ahead of him. He now finds himself within a half a second right up behind Rodman, tailing him through the stadium section. A minute left. This could be their last chance. Maybe 2 laps left in this race for these drivers. Actually, this will probably, 2 laps left for these drivers. If they come down the start-finish straight. Seeing if Friesen can make the move for P15. Definitely has the better run coming down the start-finish here. Friesen very close. Trying to keep the momentum. And isn't able to outbrake, but they go side by side out of T1. Friesen a little bit wide there. That does cause Rodman to go wide. Friesen hugging the inside line now. And I think that'll stick. Friesen makes the move, is ahead of Rodman. Very clean as we go into our last lap. Larson now making his way around. Everyone behind him now. That'll be the finishing position for those drivers, but anyone ahead of him still has a chance for another lap. As Larson now comes up on some back markers. Same ones from before, Cleric and the 32 car of Cromier, sorry. Been 45 minutes of exciting racing for our drivers so far. As Larson comes down the back straight here into the stadium section. Another dominating performance from him. A lot of this traffic is allowing Portis to get back, but I don't think it's going to be enough time for Portis to make the move. Larson is just hanging back, taking it easy on his way home. As you can see, Portis is right behind. Last lap he was a 47. And Larson bringing it home, our leader, our winner. Fastest lap, leading every lap, and the race win. That's the Triple Crown for Larson. Portis coming home P2. Any drivers behind him, Flores will lock in P19 as Englander now, for the second week in a row, gets a podium performance. Englander P3, a newcomer to Zealous. Amazing to see him doing great things in our league. Having come from P7 to get a podium finish. Great work from Englander. Fletcher P4 from P8. Nunez P5. Reed P6. Turnbull P7. Fender P8. Goetia P9. Boudry as he rounds the final turn here. Comes across P10. Pitch. It's going to be a P11 performance for him after no practice. So close to the top 10, but not quite. Brown and Flores coming crossed. Less than a second behind each other. Brown, P12. Flores, Christopher Flores, P11 and P12. Wolf, P13, first race this season. Good performance from him. Friesen will get the P14 after coming back from a bit of an incident. Rodman, P15 from the back. Great performance from him. Cleric, P16. And behind him, Todd Cromier, P17. Griffith will take P18. Yao, 19. Pinio, 20. Valero. Let's actually go into returning to the garage here and drive. If we return to the garage timetables, we go into our race here. I think I may have done that a little early, but Nope, we have all of the drivers. Going into those last few ones, we had Carlos Flores in 20, Griffith in 20, or 19, sorry, in 20, Toby Yao, 21, Pinio, 22, Collis, 23, Valero, 24. Devastating for him. Was running up in the top five and had that stop-go penalty 2 in a row. Belanger is in P26 and Rise in 27. Well, that is all we have for tonight. Congratulations to Larson, our winner for today's race. A great performance from him, 2 in a row. That puts him at the top of our championship standings. Portis will get P2. That's a great performance from him. And Englander, another podium finish for him, P3, a newcomer, but definitely scrappy performances from him, able to capitalize on some of the incidences from drivers ahead and maintain his positions and maintain his composure. Definitely got a lot of race pace, Englander, and very impressive from him. I think if I had to pick a driver of the day, it probably would be Englander, just because this has been the second week in a row he's been able to pull out a performance like that, and I really commend that. Fletcher, he gets a P4 performance. Nunez P5 after coming back from an incident. Reed P6 and Turnbull P7. Fender P8. Guacia P9. Boundary P10. That's your top 10. Well, with that, I want to thank all of our drivers for coming out tonight, and I want to thank you, the viewers, for joining us tonight for the race. It's been an absolute pleasure to be the host tonight, and I thank you so much for joining us. Now, if I get my notes together here, we'll go into the closing statements that I have for the race. Well, that was the end of round 2 for Zealous Racing League's F1 Circuit Tour in ACC. That's Season 9. Next week, we bring you round 3 of Season 9. It's going to be a 60-minute race at Silverstone. It's going to be 60 minutes, no pit stop requirement next week, next race. It's going to be a good one. I won't be here to be your commentator, but we'll have someone from the Zealous Racing League community to be able to stream the race live for you. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I've mentioned, my name has been Shim. Join us in next time for Silverstone, round 3 of ZAD's F1 Circuit Tour in ACC, brought to you by Zealous. If you're interested in finding out more about Zealous Racing League, be sure to join our Discord and get all of the latest information. Like I have mentioned, my name is Shim. I've been your host. Signing off. Have a great week and a great night.